How's it going, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. Today we're trying a completely different microphone setup. Again, it's another In the Car podcast, and today we're going to be talking about cheat meals versus cheat days. So let's get into it. So a cheat meal or a cheat day, depending on the type of person you are, whether you're endomorph or ectomorph, or I'm not sure if mesomorphs really count since they're right there in the middle, but I feel that depending on where you are in terms of your body type and your how many calories that you burn and your resting metabolic rate is going to have a dramatic effect on what type of meal or cheat meal you can have. For myself, I tend to hold on to carbs in a pretty bad way, like a stage 4 clinger in regards to carbohydrates. My body just, once I get carbs, it just goes straight to fat. Like I see it on the scale the next day. So I'm not a cheat day kind of person. I've tried it, and unfortunately, I'm not about that life. I typically keep my cheat meals one day a week, so I'll do it on a Saturday. Today being that day, actually. So later this afternoon, I just finished up with some morning cardio and wrapping up a podcast episode with Alyssa, our apple pie holder. You can check her out on her Instagram. I'll put another link to that episode in this show. But cheat meals are something that I personally need. I try to keep my diet as clean as possible, and in regards or in terms of clean, what I mean is slow digesting carbohydrates, high proteins, lean proteins, so chicken breasts, lean ground meats or turkey, things like that. I don't really concern myself too much on salt. I drink about a gallon of water during my work week, or not work week, but during the work day. So I think that I'm probably pissing out a lot of salt, and I'm not trying to get shredded. So holding on to water weight doesn't really concern me as much right now. Maybe later in my weight loss progression, I'll then visit the idea of cutting sodium down a little bit. Now, I don't mean that by taking in salt that I'm just going balls out, top ramen, super high sodium. It just means that if I put some salt on my food, like I'm not limiting myself. I'm not trying to go that deep with it right now at this point. But back onto cheat meals, I like to keep it just quick and dirty. I've done like going out, nice restaurant, get something really crazy, and it really hits her hard in the pocketbook. So for me, it's like, well, today, for example, I'm going to get some Jack in the Box. A lot of people out there, they're like, man, fast food, that's so nasty. And it's like, well, it's what's on the menu for this weekend. I'm not doing fast food every weekend, but my wife had brought it up in conversation probably around Tuesday, and it was just on my mind. It's like, yeah, I haven't had Jack in the Box in, gosh, a couple months now. I think I'll go for it, you know? Today, I'd already thought all week about what I was going to get myself that double Jack, get some jalapeno poppers, and if my wife is okay with it, maybe 2 tacos. I'm not sure. She'll probably say no, that the burger and the jalapeno poppers are more than enough, but, you know, they make pretty bomb tacos as well. And then one other reason why I like Jack in the Box is they have Coke Zero. It's supposed to be zero everything. I don't even know what's in it. Like, what is the liquid then at this point? So I was doing Diet Coke. However, I found that caffeine really affects me in a negative way, that I get pretty bad migraines from caffeine. And I never really noticed because I must have had a tolerance to it when I was drinking sodas. I wouldn't get any migraines. But when I cut soda pretty much out of my life, and I would have a soda with a cheat meal, I would get a really gnarly migraine, like almost immediately after. And we tied two and two together after some hardcore critical thinking, and it was like, okay, maybe it's the caffeine. So now when I go to a restaurant, I either have to get water or some kind of soda, or caffeine-free soda. But Jack in the Box Coke Zero it's right up my alley, so I'm gonna go with that. Now, when I say that I had done cheat days before, what I mean by that was probably back early on, before my wife and I were married, and we were in that dating phase. I would take a trip out to go see her, and we were living a pretty good distance apart from each other in the beginning of our relationship. And so these weeks of training, I would be in the gym before work, after work, doing 2-a-days, sometimes just after work. And then when we met, I would start making trips down to go visit her. And it almost became like an entire cheat day. I would go out and we would grab dinner, or she would have dinner waiting when I got there. And then the next morning we would get breakfast out, or we would have breakfast with family. And it wasn't just your regular cereal or oatmeal for me. I mean, we're talking like some bomb breakfast here. We're talking chilaquiles. If you're Hispanic, you know what I'm talking about. If you're not, then Google that and get that in your life. Put that on your personal menu. Chilaquiles are bomb. Or we would be going to lunch. Post lunch, we would get like raspados, which, again, if you don't know what that is, Google it. Unfortunately, here in the area where we're currently living, there is no reputable raspado place. It's pretty much just sugar water with ice. So, or an icy, or not really an icy, but a slushy is what it is here. And it's just not the same. It's not as good. And then we would either have dinner with family or we'd go out for dinner. So it was an entire cheat day for me. And on the scale, because my weigh-ins usually come in on Saturdays, I would get on the scale Saturday morning before taking a trip, or I'd get Friday morning before taking a trip out to go visit, and I would see the weight loss progression. But then that coming back after that trip, I would see like a 5-pound, sometimes even more, gain on the scale. And that's a lot. That is a lot to be going up after a cheat meal or a cheat day. Granted, a lot of that could have been sodium or whatever, but after a few weeks of that, I started noticing a trend. I would drop 5 pounds or drop down, like, I'll just throw out some random numbers. So say I weighed in at 210, and then after the weekend visit, I would be on the scale and it would be 215. That's like a 5-pound jump, and it would take me the entire week, and I would weigh in before my trip down the next weekend, and I would be 210 again. So I would be right smack dab back where I started. No real significant change. And what I wasn't noticing was that though I was in a caloric deficit Monday through Friday, Saturday I was actually in a huge caloric surplus. And that surplus that one day was attributing to weight gain. And so after a couple weeks, that 210 on Fridays started becoming 211, 212, 213. I started gaining weight just off of one day of, like, quote unquote, a cheat day. And again, I've always been on the heavier side. So learning this about myself, that I am I use extreme terms. I'm probably not that extreme, but I feel I'm very sensitive to carbohydrates. And in the foods we were eating, chilaquiles, that's pretty much just all carbs. You get like 2 eggs, maybe 1 egg with it, which is very little protein. And then there's eating out during lunches and eating out during dinners. And whenever you eat out, restaurants or what have you, you can pretty much almost guarantee it's going to be super high in sodium and super high in carbohydrates and very, very low, if almost non-existent amounts of protein. So being in that net gain, the scale was actually slowly starting to creep up on me, and my body fat was starting to go up. And being in love and everything, you don't really pay attention to those kinds of things, and the weight just caught up to me. So I had to then go back to just a cheap meal. And even then, a cheap meal for me, if I go out to fast food, it almost has to just be a value meal with some kind of diet drink, because you can already guess, like the burger, if you get a burger, no matter where you go, it's probably going to be around the 500 to 800 calorie range. If you get fries, that's usually 500 to 600 calorie range if you go for large. And then that diet drink is hopefully net zero in calories. So we're talking about a 1,200 calorie meal. I do fasted cardio Saturday mornings, so I don't really have to concern myself with not doing anything or being sedentary on a day that I have a cheat meal. And I almost always feel entirely full, like almost completely full after a cheat meal, that I can go the rest of the day almost on like an intermittent fast and go to bed with either a shake or a really, really light dinner. And I've seen progress with that. It gives me something to look forward to Monday through Friday when I'm eating clean and my coworkers are offering, let's go out to lunch, or they're bringing McDonald's in for lunch, or they've got amazing food in the microwave that just smells awesome. But meal preps we'll get into on another episode. But for right now, I keep it pretty simple. I eat clean Monday through Fridays. I look forward to my cheat meals right now on Saturdays. And I found out that I'm a cheat meal kind of guy. I can't do a cheat day, unlike some people. If you can do a cheat day, I mean, more power to you. That's pretty awesome. It can get pretty expensive, but on the other hand, it's pretty awesome that you can have a day where you can eat or feel a little sense of freedom to eat and not have to suffer so many of the consequences that I found myself I was suffering after a cheat meal. But I'd like to hear from you guys. I know we've had a pretty open dialogue since posting some of these podcasts. I mean, thank you for the DMs that you guys are sending and the words of encouragement. And thank you to those who have been a part of these podcasts as of late, in terms of wanting to be on and do interviews and talk about themselves and talk about what it is that they're doing. But where do you guys stand? Are you a cheat meal kind of person, or are you able to do a cheat day? I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Again, you can follow me on my Instagram, just at it's at Ramon_Campamor. That's CAMPOAMOR. I'm a little delusional right now. I am still post cardio and my hands are starting to shake a little bit, so I got to get in there and eat some breakfast. But thank you guys again for taking the time out of your day to listen to this podcast. And if you're a subscriber, thank you for subscribing, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.